Welcome to Battle Rankings Podcast. My name is Svetlana, and today I am with...
Hey, I'm Matt Valgertson, one of the mad lads over at the Flames of War, Regina Riffles Gaming Club in exotic Saskatchewan.
Okay, and Saskatchewan's a big area, isn't it? Is it? I don't know the geography up there too well.
It is. It's Canada, so all the provinces are pretty massive.
Okay. When did you first start playing tabletop gaming?
Long enough ago to really make me feel old. I think I'm just about to enter my second decade of the hobby, possibly more, starting with you're at a buddy's house, you're playing Shadowrun. Next thing you know, you're looking at his brother's mints like, oh, what's all this stuff? And then you find all these really gorgeous old school Warhammer miniatures, and then it begins.
That is the downfall is, oh, look at the minis. Paint the minis. Build the minis.
Yeah, exactly.
Come to the tournament. And before you know it, you're down a rabbit hole.
Pretty much.
So what first got you into tabletop gaming? Was it just playing with friends?
Yeah, exactly. Just like the models looked really cool. Like a lot of people, you start off with just because they're the biggest, you start off with like Warhammer 40K, just because like the models are really cool. And then you start finding other games that either you get in. That's the thing about miniature gaming is that sometimes you drop in, you drop out, you start a game, it doesn't work. But sometimes you start a game and it really takes off. And that was definitely my experience with Flames of War, in fact.
Yeah, and Flames of War has been going on for a while. When did you start playing? What version did you start with that one?
I would have started at around tail end of V2 coming into V3. Somewhere I still have my V3 rulebook with the V2 veteran little sticker they used to give you if you sent in a thing to Battlefront.
Oh, that's great. So you play 40K, Team Yankee, Flames of War. Do you play any other tabletop games?
Yeah, far too many, in fact. I've got a gorgeously converted Assault on Mimban themed Imperial Army for Star Wars Legion. Here in Moose Jaw, we're trying to get a lot going with Bushido. It's a game of Sharkmen and Samurai and stuff. But definitely Flames of War and Team Yankee have consistently been my main jam. And are definitely one of the stronger communities we've got out here in the prairies too.
Okay, so that's a so for Regina Riffles, what is the games played?
So for the Regina Riffles Club, it's based around Flames of War and all of the attached games. So we regularly have tournaments for Flames of War, all the periods that are played in that. We've got Team Yankee events, and then we do traveling events, massive team games for all of the other ones, such as Nam, Great War, and Fate of a Nation as well.
Okay, so how far have you guys, your traveling teams gone then?
Well, we sent people like Jace Pippin up to nationals events, and I know that Lance, our main guy, he's gone to a bunch of tournaments like that as well. Primarily the events that we host is just basically Southern Saskatchewan, primarily based around Regina, but also there's a promising new game store in Estevan. So we've gone to events out there to try and grow the community out there. Sometimes we've done things in Saskatoon years ago, but mostly around that Regina area.
Okay. We kind of talked about all the events. Do you have specific meeting times, or is it something where you kind of just pop into the Facebook group and say, oh, hey, anybody here for a pickup game?
So at least with the way that we structure things, we have the events planned out months in advance. So there'll be like every month there'll be an event, either a large team game or a tournament of some kind. Because we have to like book the space and everything like that in advance as well. So people will know, hey, they want to check stuff out. Here's the time to do it. And then, of course, as well, sometimes we'll go up and run like demo games at different events and things like that too.
Okay, that's fun. Have you worked with other groups up there as well then, or?
I haven't. Like, pretty much, we're the only group like operating out of Saskatchewan.
Okay.
But there's also like great clubs in like out in Alberta that I think like a couple of the guys have gone to their events. We've all been like really locked indoors for the last couple of years, so we haven't traveled as much.
Oh,
And really, yeah,
the
exactly.
struggle of the game.
Pretty much. And really, this last year has just been about trying to reestablish our footprint too.
Yeah, and I'm sure you talking about this helps.
Yeah, exactly. That way, like more people know about the club. If you're in the prairie, if you're in the windswept prairies of Saskatchewan, you know that hey, there's people. They like tanks. They want to play them. Come out and meet us.
Yeah, for sure. What's the story of the group?
Well, in terms of history, basically, honestly, I got to give a lot of credit to the Lance Matthew, the cat who basically runs the thing. He has kept the community going through like a lot of really weird times. Whether it was just like a lot of people dropping out just because V4 was such a transformational addition for Flames of War, and even managing to like keep it going through like we survived the pandemic and also the loss of the only gaming store that really supported the game too. We used to have like a really good store in Regina, but then they closed, and suddenly there was this mass diaspora of wargamers trying to find a place to make it work. So like we've been doing, and for like a good year or so, we were playing our games in the basement of a Legion Hall in a small town right by the city, just because I'm the president of the branch and I had keys and tables. Until eventually settling on like a great spot we found in like one of the local malls where we're finally able to get out among the public again.
Yeah, and I'm sure that the game store supporting the hobby is just as important as the game stores are just as important as the different clubs.
Oh yeah, it really is critical. Like I'm honestly shocked how well we've been able to keep the club going, despite the fact that we don't have like a supportive game store in our local city. The one we have is just basically they just don't have the physical room to accommodate things, and they've got too many other things to really concentrate on our game. Weirdly enough, the only like really supportive store that we have is one that opened up in a city of Estevan. Basically, it's a 2-hour drive away from where we tend to play. But they got really into the game, so we've been trying to travel out and support them to the best of our ability. Kessel Run Games, great people, check them out.
Yeah, that's kind of my story where I live in Ohio. There, I could probably name half a dozen stores off the top of my head. And good stores, I can always find paint there typically, except for the fact that they don't necessarily have the customer base to support buying a bunch of Battlefront games, models, whatever. So they mostly focused on what they can sell easily in the area, which is typically like Warhammer.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we're at with like the main gaming store that we have in Regina too. It's just that essentially it's just like it's largely a comic shop that also just sells miniatures, but just with all the people either doing like Warhammer or Magic the Gathering and other games, they only have a very small room in the back. They just can't really fit everyone.
Oh, it's not even the size. I've gone to game stores that are fantastically huge. They can support whole tournaments for Warhammer, which that takes up space too.
Yeah.
Um but they just don't have this. The demand's just not there for.
Yeah, either the demand or just the will too, in terms of like the owner and trying to work with them. So we lucked out and found a great place. They're just 2 hours away.
All of the stores I go to are at least an hour and a half, so I know the pains.
Yeah, exactly.
Which they're great stores. I have no complaints traveling there. Even if it ends up being for one box of a $60 box.
Yeah, pretty much.
I just try and pick up a few paints while I'm there too. Add a little bit extra to the receipt to make it worth the gas money.
Well, yeah, you gotta.
Yeah.
And you're always running out of something when you're painting too, so.
Yes. I always need more paint, more primer. I get super into my bases, so I always need more basing material. There's
nice
something.
Yeah, like just working on the basing has been something that I've been like trying to get into like over the last few years. Like I just wound up like rebasing a bunch of my dudes and like updating models that I first painted like 15 years ago when I first got into Flames.
Not for my Flames models, but I have some 40K models that I feel that way. Even from like a year ago, I look at them and I'm like,
yeah.
If I had the willpower to redo these, I would. But at least I know which models are from what era.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's a thing across all the games that you have to paint models for. Is just the artistry involved.
Yeah, and for like a lot of people, it can be like a really fun centering part of the hobby. Like I tend to like go like really ham on the modeling aspect of the game, which is like super fun. Like for all like my planes, like I bought decals from some guy so I could do them like the actual RCAF back in the war. Had to get another bunch of guys just because I wanted to pick which units I wanted the units to be from. Just rating the bits box for all kinds of nonsense that you can put in on the tanks.
I have my own bits box that I built. It's this tackle box.
Oh, it's an organized bits box. Yeah, I just have
this. It's a very organized bits box. My favorite part is the section full of skulls.
Yes. Well, of course, because if you have insufficient skulls, how are you going to make that skull throne?
I have a few skull thrones. I use them as objective markers.
Oh, that is a perfect use for a throne made of skulls. Yeah. My bits box is just like this big box of nonsense. Like sometimes, like, all right, we'll find old Imperial Guard bits. We'll find some orc stuff. We'll find some old Germans that I assembled, but maybe never like fully painted. Random loose models, all kinds of things to just reach in your hand and get poked real good.
No, 100% credit to my husband, John. John Meyer. He 100% bought this box for me, and he's like, "Hey, here you go." And I'm like, "What's this for?" He's like, "For all the extra pieces off the sprues." And I'm like, "What? Okay."
Yeah, some measure of organization to the pile, eh?
I mean, that's what happens when you have a whole entire room dedicated to wargaming.
Oh, a glorious room it is.
It is a glorious room. It's an expensive room.
Yeah, I'll bet.
So do you have a war room?
It's mostly just kind of like taking over my house. So like, things are scattered in like the basement. There's like a ton of things over like my office right now. So like just like in and around in my workstation, like, we've got just like, oh, there's a pile of battle mechs I'm working on. Some of the new SU-17 kits for that just came out for the new Warsaw Pact book.
I have a bunch of like Panthers and new stuff stuff that I'm building that I'm waiting for a primer color.
Like anytime my wife wants to use the scanner on the printer, she actually has to move like an entire flight of Apache helicopters off of them just because that's where they're right now, and I haven't found a better place to put them.
I got mad that, or I didn't get mad particularly. That's not the right word. It was becoming a developing problem, a developing frustration that our kitchen table, which is it's a big harvest table, so it's like 8 people. Its sides fold down to like a nice buffet. It's a nice
Okay.
table. That whole entire table was filled with modeling stuff. And I was just like, this, something needs to be done here.
Okay. Yep. That sounds about right. Yeah. Just they take over your house and they spread.
Yes, they migrate and spread. Right now, they're migrating to the basement, and hopefully, that's where they live. Um, at some point, they don't live there yet, though.
Well, it's all like a progress. Like we all tell ourselves that. All right, I'm gonna finally gonna pick up that display case and show off all my stuff, and then you either do it or you just like nope.
Yeah, yeah. It's an ongoing struggle of wargaming collectively.
Yeah, pretty much.
Where can your club be found?
So the main place that you can find the FOW Regina Rifles is on the Book of Faces. Basically, we found it's the easiest way to communicate to people, get the events going. So if you just go up in your search bar, just type FOW-Regina Rifles, takes you right to us. True story. We actually got permission from the regiment of the same name to utilize the name because the Regina. Yeah,
Noticed that there was 2 of them, and it was like, I don't know which one's which, except it's really easy once you realize one of them is not.
Yeah, one of those is FOW. Yep. The Regina Rifle Regiment, now known as the Royal Regina Rifles. They're a militia regiment up here in Canada, but back in the day, they were one of the units that made the Normandy landings and just smashed Nazi face from Juno Beach all the way to Caen and beyond.
That is quite the accomplishments.
Yeah, they're actually I painted up my whole Canadian army just like them.
I mean, fair. I don't think I heard of I don't know if I know what. I wish I remember what the book was called. There was one book that I read in high school because I was the nerd that read a lot of nonfiction historical books.
Okay, yep.
And there was one book that I read that was World War II and talked about this private that was from Canada, and he had a hard time enlisting, as many people did.
Mm-hmm.
And he really was a genuine Chris Rogers, where he was like, I'm gonna keep trying until I get in, and he got in, and I wish I remember what the book was called.
Oh, the war produced all kinds of like great characters that like I really wish a lot of them would come back as like warriors in the 4th edition of the game. Maybe if we got more of like a late war Italian book, but that's just because like not enough people know about like the legend of Smokey Smith, the guy who joined a regiment 2 towns over because there's no way in hell he's going to take orders from his old high school teachers. Murdered a ton of Panthers with just a little Piat. Had to be escorted to the Victoria Cross ceremony by the MPs because his drinking was destroying the town. Promoted and demoted a whole bunch of times. Great dude.
Those were the fun wars. Those are the fun stories. That's genuinely why I love like the historical memoirs and the historical journals of the times. You get a good perspective that you don't always see.
Yeah, that's like one of like the fun parts of the hobby too, is just like learning a little bit more about either like cool things that cool people did from like either your hometown or where you're from, or even just just getting to paint some awesome stuff. That's what pulls a lot of people into it. That's why I'm so glad that we have, after spending like years in like a Dusty Legion basement, that's why I'm finally glad that like one of the local malls opened up basically an abandoned shop front for community groups. And now we have a public facing area to play again, because that's where you can tell people to come. That's where people can see the models and get hooked in. That's one of the things that we really miss about that friendly local gaming store, was just bunch of cool cats coming together, seeing each other's models, getting interested in new games too.
I do have to shout out Lance Matthew. It's probably the same Lance that you were talking about.
Same Lance, yep.
A little bit earlier. He is the one that recommended that I contact Regina Riffles. And then Chris Jackson threw in a few comments about that. But I do have to shout him out for recommending us talk to you.
Yeah, Lance has been a fantastic anchor point for the community.
It really does sound like that. I'm sure he's up there with all of you, playing all of you guys in Canada.
Yeah, I don't know where like he's fully ranked, but like he knows the game, he knows the stuff. Of course, JC's like our hitter. He's actually been to the most tournaments and whatnot.
Yeah. You know that they're probably a hitter when they come to American events.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, Jace Pippin is definitely the Daryl Strawberry on this Springfield nuclear power plant team's rec softball league.
I mean, especially with some of the border regulations, to come here, that's really saying something if you can come to multiple.
Yeah. He knows the game, a super passionate dude, and that's what like the club's all about. And like, the great thing about like, the great group of cats that we have out here is you don't need to be all in it for like that super competitive thing. We'll get you your games, we'll get you your reps if that's something that you're interested in. But it's all just about the love of the game, the love of the hobby, just coming together to share the joy of tabletop wargamers, recreating that fun feeling of, toy soldiers. But now there's a 100-page rule book, but somehow that makes it better.
So how did your club respond to the new lessons from the front?
Well, wasn't anything like too explosive, at least just yet. Like, I know that I personally haven't had a chance to like fully read over the document unless there were like specific things that I was looking to do. But we take the new erratas as they come, and whatever, like there hasn't been like anything wrong with the game that we went like, oh, hold on a second. Like, admittedly, I haven't noticed anything new in the latest lessons from the front, but that's all. But then again, I was just skimming through it specifically for some night attack rules for like a surprise that I'm planning to launch on people at our next tournament.
So I was able to pull up battle rankings really fast. Lance is number 2.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. He does pretty all right. He's tweaked some really nice armies.
And I think that's number 2 for Canada. We have a lot of most of our listeners are in the United States, so that's a clarification. Number 2 for Canada.
Which is pretty impressive. We got a lot of Flames of War people up here, and Lance in particular, his Team Yankee Canadians are godless killing machines.
And I'm sure you can guess who's number 1 in Canada.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely hate this guy. When I show up to a tournament, we're gunning for that best painted.
I mean, that's the best one to win, right? It validates all the hard work that you put into painting the models and
and which is good.
The craft.
Yeah, particularly for me, just because like I have like the disease in my brain where like I can't field something until it's actually painted and ready to party.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've actually wound up painting like several other people's armies as a result of horse trading that we've done. So like when we do like a lot of like the Fate of a Nation team games, Lance and I, we have the most coordinated armies because I painted both of them as part of a horse trade I did for some mins in a new book.
Not the keyboard bugs.
Yeah, cat's
Desk
just
cat.
gonna cat-like typing detected.
Desk cats at it again.
Yeah, they're always a fun surprise.
Always the keyboard. It's right on his landing pad area from the table he jumps at. How do you recommend people find a gaming group?
A lot of it is honestly just going to depend on your area. Typically, if you've got a store in your neck of the woods, go there on a Saturday. That's where you're most likely to see people at an event. Other than that, really, it's just a matter of whatever game you're in, finding the community, particularly online now, that's a part of it. Because, that is one of the handier bits of the Internet of Things, is whatever game you're in, if there's a community for it, you can probably find them. Or, depending on what's going on, maybe you might be the one to get started, depending on where you're at. Like our group was really just a bunch of cats and a lot of miniatures, and we just built it into a thing.
Do you have any suggestions for the person that's going to be starting the group? I know that's kind of
delegate and don't do it all yourself, basically. That's a good way to get burnt out. But if you luck out and you have the right people, and the thing to always remember is that at the end of the day, it's just a game. You're doing it for fun. The world's not actually in jeopardy if you lose the battle.
I think that's one of the best parts about Team Yankee and Flames of War, is that the environment is friendly competition. Everyone's just there to have fun. And if you win a little trophy along the way, then cool. But if not, it is.
Yeah, exactly. Particularly, like when I'm, I break out my Germans, they get shellacked a little bit. It's like, well, bad for my guys, but overall good for humanity. So what you gonna do?
Exactly. Anything? Any closing thoughts? Before.
Well, basically, the main thing is just hopefully you're lucky enough and you can find the people who are passionate about the same things that you are. The main thing is going to be, if you don't have a group or community, check your local game store. See if there's any events in your area, because lots of people, there'll be like gaming conventions. Like we have a couple quarterly ones where people will just come together. Huge board games days, huge tabletop games days, and just never be afraid to come to a demo, check some stuff out, and ask questions, because the people there, unless they're a bunch of snotbags, they want to teach you and they don't mind the questions, because it's all about getting better at it. That's the spirit we got here at our club, and hopefully a lot of the good ones have that too.
Yeah, I mean, at least I'd hope a lot of the other clubs would have a similar spirit. Just it keeps the joy alive of the game. Keeps the magic.
Exactly. Nobody likes having their fun wrecked by a bunch of rivet counters. So just remember, hey, it's just a game. We're doing it for fun. That's the thing that matters at the end of it.
I have a desk cat again.
Oh, yeah, they get everywhere.
I think he's appropriately named Bugs now. He's validated his name.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So you can be found on Facebook.
Yeah, just look for FOW Regina Rifles. Facebook.com/FOW Regina Rifles. Join, ask questions. If you're in the area, check out a demo. We've always got armies to lend, and we're always willing to teach.
What kind of stretch do you have players come from for your events? I'm sorry.
Well, whenever we've done once a year, we'll host like a nationals or regionals tournament. We've had a couple guys, come from the States. We've had a few people who, sometimes they'll come out from either Alberta. We had one guy come out from Ontario last time. But basically, mainly it's going to be all around that southern Saskatchewan area. But that works for us. Saskatchewan is goddamn huge. So you encapsulate a lot of area in that.
I mean, I'm sorry. I American education system doesn't teach world geography the best. You have set 5 provinces.
Basically, there's 10 of them.
10 of
them.
But
except for the little ones, out east, the Maritimes, they're all California, Texas, and larger sized, basically. So all the provinces are huge really chunks of land.
But I didn't actually have to learn them. I just knew they were really big.
Yeah, that's the main thing. They're huge. Some of them have a lot of people in them. Some of them not so much.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for coming on. I need to find my page. Oh wait, it's over here. The struggles of having a dual screen setup that the cat buggered up.
Yep.
Thank you for coming on. I hope the listeners enjoyed. Subscribe, comment, hit all the fun buttons. Find Regina Riffles on Facebook. I'm sure even if you can't make it to an event, there's still good discussion there.
Yeah, exactly that. Even if you don't wind up making it out to one of the actual the tournaments we host, you can always pop in, ask questions, and hey, you never know when you might actually be able to make it out one time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I haven't ever been to Canada, but it's definitely something that I've thought about, just seeing a new place. Regina's a bit farther away though than.
Yeah, it's just a bit. The distances tend to get pretty crazy up here, so.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you for listening. If you've hung on for the half an hour, Facebook likes it, Spotify likes it, not Facebook, YouTube likes it, Spotify likes it. Listening time is everything now.
Yeah, exactly. Just crank those hours.
Yeah, pretty much. And you can find battle rankings. There's a linktre link in the description. And then I'll also have the Regina Riffles in there as well.
Exactly. Slap all the links in there and off we go.
Pretty much. But it's worth it.
Exactly. Well, thanks for having me out. It's been a great time. Looking forward to checking out more of the other clubs that we've got out here. All the people who just, love tanks, love rolling dice, and love pretending to make them blow up.
Pretty much, especially now that we have to have little tank placards for construction for destroyed tanks. All right, thank you.
All right, talk to you later. Have a great one.